Well, hello again, and welcome back. So, now that the joy of the solar boxes, well, it's a joy for me, the solar boxes are kind of finished. I mean, they're still painted, but they're functional and begging for some solar panels to put on them. But before I do that, there's no point, because there needs to be something on the other side to connect them to. So I'm pushing on with sort of connecting up all the bits in the back, in the electric corner, let's call it. So, first thing though is some weeks ago you'll remember, well you remember if you watched it. Anyway, I've started making a distribution board for the 48 volt electrics. Distribution board is probably a bit poncy, but it's that's kind of what it's meant to do. And I've now got the bit of copper that I needed that I erroneously cut up, and I've made that the right size, so everything is good to go, apart from one thing. And with copper, you know that it will, it starts out shiny, but it quickly goes, well, this isn't too bad, but it's, it very quickly oxidizes. And with these sort of low voltage but high amperage systems, you really, every connection and things like dirt and corrosion is a resistance point, so you want to get those minimized as much as possible. So I have a very, very kind friend in America sent me this, which is a sort of a paste that you put on. It's kind of no allox, and it's the clues in the name, and it basically is made for copper and sort of aluminium when you put them together to stop it oxidizing. However, on top of that, and a belt and braces approach, when you buy things like copper bus bars, they're normally quite shiny because they've been plated with either tin or nickel. And so what I'm going to have a go at is trying to tin plate these. So I have a piece of tin. This is actually a bar of pure tin that's sold for retinning copper pans, in fact, but tin is tin, so that. And let's see what this happens. I mean, when I say it happens, I really don't know how this is going to go out. I mean, it's in some ways it's a bit of fun for me. I've always liked chemistry stuff, but yeah, let's see. It's quite a soft metal, so you can actually, pare it off quite well. Easily, probably not the word, but you can shave it off. I think is with a craft knife. I'm just trying to get it into some little pieces. So, channeling my inner Jennifer Aniston, here comes the science, and so that's my tin trimmings, shavings, as it were. There's about 5 grams of those. And then what I've got here is, it's called spirits. It's actually this is strong hydrochloric acid, and so you add hydrochloric acid to the tin, and over some time there's a chemical reaction, and you will get a basically tin salt, tin chloride, and of course the other part of that equation is there'll be some hydrogen. So once this goes in, I will then put this outside to so I don't want I would imagine, well, just looking at it, it's not going to be, it shouldn't be blowing the boat up, but just for the abundance of caution, as they say, I will do that. So yeah, so I'm going to add about 50 millilitres measured. So I'm just measuring it as in assuming it's not, which is not quite right. I'm assuming it's water level, which is not, but I will put 50 grams in. They basically sell this for descaling, just it's acid. Oof. I haven't had that whiff of hydrochloric acid since chemistry at university, a long time ago. That's certainly. But yeah, you probably won't be able to see, but there are sort of little hydrogen bubbles coming off already, which is a good thing. After a few days sitting there, as you can see, there is no tin left, and we have a solution of tin chloride. So what I'm going to do now is, that now forms the electrolyte for the electroplating, and I'm going to dilute that in some water and set up the electroplating bath. So before there's any bathing going on, I've got to clean the copper to, well, back to as super shiny as possible. So I'm using a mixture of steel wool and vinegar acid, mild acid, which helps helps get rid of the outer tarnish. And then even before that, and then I will wipe it in some acetone as well, nail polish remover. Before, after, you see, quite a difference. Here's the setup. First one to admit, it's rather Heath Robinson, but I'm on the middle of a boat construction yard and it works. So you have a extremely low voltage and extremely low current. When I first put it on, I had about 0.5 an amp, and there were bubbles coming from the setup, which is not good. And then you have your you attach your tin, and that's your anode, and then your the bits. Now I'm just doing a couple of little test bits under there, but they are then the cathode. So as the electroplating works, the tin basically migrates through the electrode and deposits itself onto the outside of the copper. A bit like sun tanning and facing the sun, the bits that are facing the tin anode get sort of plated faster and more heavily than the other bits. So the way to do that, I just every 5 minutes or so, just put this into a different place, and that seems to help even things up. After about 10 minutes, they start getting these little whiskers, as it were, but they just stop it, and you just keep using that just word. I tried to anyway. You simply wipe them off and put it back in, and carry on. Overall, to get a functional coating, this takes about half an hour of electroplating. Well, those haven't come out too bad. Not quite as shiny as I hoped, but I haven't got my polishing wheel. That's back in London, and I'm not going to spend hours and hours and hours hand. Well, I mean, I have given them a quick hand polish, but you know what I mean. Anyway, they should do the job. I finally have my drill back, about 4 weeks later, and not that I think he watches these, but if you do, Dave, thank you for that, because thank you for the loan of yours after all this time, because I couldn't have made much progress without it. Morning. Sorry about the light here. I just can't get it to go away where the camera is. And talking of light, they always say, well, I've read that once you're over 40, you should never have a selfie from below, and the camera is below, and I'm looking myself not long enough and thinking I'd rather not be seeing myself. Anyway, enough about me. So I'm finishing off installing the sockets for the 230 ring mains. There aren't that many of them because it's a boat, not a house. And I'm using the plastic drywall boxes, which work great with the boat lining, because instead of these have two tabs that you put in, you push out, and then the screw pulls it back into what should be plasterboard, but they work really well with the lining, and that gives a nice sort of firm grip in. And then I'm also using bootlace ferrules before, rather than just strip the wires and put them into the plug like I've done in the past and like most people do at home, just as an extra sort of level of neatness. They're called dual entry ferrules, because you can see both wires go in. I'd say I'm loving using them, because not only does it make a nice neat finish, and it prevents any little tiny strands of wires poking out. It actually also makes the connecting of the plug a lot easier, because if you do it the normal way, you have to really, when you're trying to do this and screw it all in, making sure the wires are both the correct depth, and that prevents that. So I'm loving that. I think regardless of where I do any anything in the future, any plugs or whatever, I will definitely using bootlace ferrules. Anyway, last one to do, and then the next step. So that's all the sockets wired up, and I've tested them with you can see the plug and tester, and they're all fine. It's actually, the electricity is just coming from from the marine at the moment, just directly in there. I will obviously have to replumb that, as it were, and it's absolutely been great to have. They've been very useful. I couldn't have lived without them, but it's been great to take all the trail of extension leads off the floor, because now I can just plug things in. I mean, I could have done that actually ages ago, because it's not waiting on any other specialist electronics or anything. The only reason I didn't do it earlier was because I had this notion that I would like to paint everything first, because then you'd avoid having all the paint around the sockets, and it's just a nicer finish. However, as as the painting is getting pushed further and further back, that plan is going to have to be abandoned, and I'll just have to get the masking tape out when it comes to it. It's an unexpectedly nice morning. It wasn't forecast to be like this, so I'm just taking the opportunity while it's nice and dry to fix on the remaining job for the remaining as well as painting, but the other one is to fix the legs down onto the fix them onto the roof. And how I've done that, I didn't want to drill 36 holes in the roof, so I've taken some blocks and grip filled those onto the roof, and then I'm screwing into those and into the legs, and with 6 in a box that should be enough, I think. Now that the bars have been plated, I can put together the distribution board for hopefully the final time. So I'm using a torque wrench, because again with these you want the joints to be as firm as possible without going too much. So this is set to it's about 13.5 Newton meters, whatever it is, which is what they recommended for the switches. And as you can see, so that clicks, so that's done. So that's good. Just a couple more to do, and then I have to do the battery leads first, because I've tried to minimise the number of connection or the number of joints, etc. in this, and so as a result, on the isolation switches, the cables will be connected straight to it. But the way it means I need to sort of screw those in and tighten them up before I attach these for the final time. So I have the joy of battery crimping to come. So I'm doing the cables in situ, because as you can see they are quite monsters, and because they're so big, you need to know sort of what the attitude is. So these lugs, which are basically, it's crimping, and it's the same as the ones you do the small, but just in a big way. Anyway, but you need to have them at the sort of the right attitude, because if it's like that, you can't really twist this cable, because it's so chunky. Anyway, so I've done a few of the smaller ones. These are the last couple to do, I have to say. It's one of those things that it's quite straightforward, but it would be so much easier if I had not an extra pair of hands, just one extra hand to hold things. Would be like life so much better. So this is what you'd use for your, actually I have been using for my long workshop. When you get to these monsters, this is the crimping tool. It's basically it's a bottle jack, and with extra trimmings, and the bottle, the just as you use for car, and with the same amount of force, so it basically can then push against these dies here and will crimp the metal connector, the lug that I've got. The only thing is, it's quite heavy, like a car jack is, and you have to keep everything in one place, and trying to make sure, if you're not careful when you're doing it, it tends to squeeze the wire back out. So it's all in all, it's quite a thing. It's actually helpful having the wire going through the bulkhead, because it's not flopping about so much. But yeah, as you can see, just one more hand is very helpful. That's on. But as it keeps happening, it's sort of, when I started, the insulation was tight butted against the ring, and now there's a bit of a gap. It's going to be covered in heat shrink, so it's just not going to get a YouTube title saying how to get a professional finish, but hey, I can do my best. a bit better with a bit of heat shrink. That's all the cables in, and well, all of these cables in, and everything is tightened up. And yes, and I know this looks like a seething mass of fighting snakes, but there is an awful lot coming together in this very small corner. You've got two 230 volt AC inputs. You've got the 230 volt AC distribution. You've got 48 volts. You've got 24 volts. You've got signal stroke data cables, and yeah, and this is most of the times we've been thinking the most sort of logical way to plumb all that in, and I did think about maybe having a big sort of downcomer, as it were, or big trunk down on the way. But then that's the problem, is there's so many different different systems, and you wouldn't be running 230 volt AC wires next to unprotected, next to the same conduit as 48 volt DC wires, etc. So anyway, that's what I've ended up with. So the next thing to do is have a good tidy up, and then it's starting assembling the cells for the actual battery. Cells in the box, and that's the bus bars laid on top. And as you can see, the leads for the current sensors for the battery management system. So now the next thing is to take my carefully shrink wrapped wrenches and sockets and tighten all these up. So everything is tightened up, and you can't see, but there is some perspex on these, obviously. So well, not obviously, but sensibly, so though things can't go dropping in. And the light there is coming from the batteries via an inverter, and I've just boiled a kettle, and well, nothing happened, but the kettle boiled, which is good. The only thing is, there's this I'm pointing at, you can see. This here, which is a contactor, stops and starts the voltage if the BMS, which is here, says that the voltages are out of sync, and it's not quite doing what I think it should be doing. I need to have a look at that. However, I am literally out of time, so it is the coronation weekend for British people who are watching this, and I'm off to my friend Summer's over in Herefordshire to watch that, and also see. She's got a new house, which I haven't seen, so that'll be very nice. But I have to leave because otherwise I'll be late, and so this is all going to have to wait until there's going to be there's going to have to be some fiddlers, lots of settings to do. The inverter here has got to be plugged into the computer and configured and all that kind of stuff. So there's no point. Well, I said I'm out of time. There's no point rushing it. So that will be. I'm afraid you've got yet another week of electricity stuff. But also, when I get back, I'm very much intent that the solar panels will be up on the roof and connected ASAP, which will be great. And also, I know this is kind of a blog rather than a how-to, but I know that there are a couple of viewers that are kind of interested in the basic setup. So I will go without shooting details. Next time, when I've got a bit more time, I will go through the setup in a basic level, just so people know what's there. Anyway, in the meantime, thanks for watching. If you watch in time, have the happy extra bank holiday weekend, whether you're a monarchist or not, and see you soon.